Hello, hello, hello. Good evening to the few already in the chat. Actually, a shitload of people already in the chat. Wow. You say one bullish thing about shitcoins and people just flood in. I dig it. I dig it. Hey Don, audio and video good, sir? Thanks, man. Appreciate it, as always. Everyone just save yourself some time and hit the like button. You know you're gonna do it anyway. Appreciate that message, man. Appreciate it, because I always forget to ask for it. But yeah, lots to talk about today. Been a pretty insane week. I've been away for most of it, but I mean, given the fact that I bought some XRP and some TRX, I mean, shitloads happening. I missed out. How did your golf tournament go? It went all right. The handicap wasn't as weighted as it could have been, so didn't win, but did more than plenty and played way above my handicap, so I'm happy. So yeah, before we start, shout out to the sponsor of the show, which is FTX, formerly known as Blockfolio. They still do like the portfolio tracking and all that kind of stuff on the FTX app now, which is different from the FTX Pro app, which is the normal kind of FTX app, how it's used to be. But instead, it's just like Blockfolio, just renamed, right? So if you want to check that out, check it out. The links are in the description. And yeah, appreciate their support. XRP, I almost can't believe it. Yeah, I mean, the times are crazy, right? You gotta do what you gotta do. And I mean, I saw a good opportunity and I went for it. So how do you guys want to go about this? Do you want to start with like the shit coins and then go to Bitcoin, or do we just do like the Bitcoin stuff? What's your preferred way of going about this thing? Let me know while I post the link to this thingy on Twitter. Okay, Bitcoin first. Sound is low. Let me quickly fix that. Is it better now? I hope it is. Might be. If not, you're just gonna have to raise your volume. But yeah, everyone wants to start with Bitcoin, so we'll start with Bitcoin. We talked about this last week, right? I said, like, I think we were trading at like 39, 38 or something. I was like, if we reclaim 40K, that's super bullish, and then it's just gonna go up, right? I left basically on the candle close above it, bought some. Pretty lucky on that front. If I left like a day earlier, wouldn't have caught that. But yeah, so pretty nice up move. I still think like there's some more room to go, but I think like buying at this point starts getting riskier and riskier if you're not in from 40K. So for me, like I'm happy with this. If it starts going back below 40K, I'll start getting worried again, because like we've seen the setup a million times, right? This starts rolling over, starts crashing below 40K. We have like head and shoulders on our hands. That'd be bad news, right? We don't want to see that. So that's kind of my invalidation for now, 40, 45. Any closes below there, and I think that's troublesome. And I'll start looking for exits if we start closing there, right? Now, that said, I don't really care too much about this right now. I think we're in a general area of resistance, right? Let's say we go to like, you could draw a bunch of resistances here actually that are all just fine-ish, right? This is a resistance that's what we've been struggling with. You could like draw some in here. You could even draw some in here. Like this in general is just an area of resistance, right? Doesn't have to mean it has to go down. For me, I'm still expecting, like in general, like crypto to go up as long as we're trading above 40K, right? Like I don't really mind sticking my neck out for like a 6K movement, which this would be, right? Let's say this drops from here. That's like a 10% movement to the downside. Erases pretty much the entirety of the breakout buy gains. And that's that, right? Fuck it. And if that happens, bear market's back on the table, and I think just heading lower. But until it happens, like I don't really mind being positioned on the bullish side of things. Now, the reason why I've been like delving into the shitcoin side of things is, given that we are at resistance, I think there's a good chance that we either start shopping here, right? Or that we're going to get rejected but hold up 40K. And both of those things, I think, would lead to the altcoins kind of getting more interest. Now, that doesn't have to be true, right? And there's more reasons for why I bought XRP, for example, but we'll talk about that in a bit. But in general, I think Bitcoin being like at this resistance, like if this is a complacency bounce, I think the best way to kind of distribute Bitcoin would be by pumping altcoins. And it's somewhat happening with the NFTs, but I think like the traditional kind of coin pumps would do wonders for people to kind of get bullish into resistance to get distributed on, right? So either that happens and I think altcoins are going to do well, or Bitcoin is going to break out and altcoins aren't going to do too well on the Bitcoin pairs, but they're still going to do fine on the USD pairs. So like in both cases, I'm somewhat okay with the result, right? That's why like I've pretty much exchanged most of the Bitcoin I bought into altcoins. Does that make sense? I hope it does. We can talk about the higher time frames too. But I mean, there's not that much there. Like I said, this area, and I mean, this is pretty big resistance. You could even like box it out. Like this is the first resistance that we have here, right? So like if we have a complacency bounce, it's going to be in this area. And like I said, complacency bounce is usually coupled with altcoins going wild, right? So I've positioned for the complacency bounce, but let's say it's not, and it just keeps on going up. I'm still going to gain in USD and then start like transferring my altcoins back into Bitcoin if we start breaking out north of 50K, right? So got a plan for any kind of eventualities. I think it makes sense to kind of be a little bit on the defensive side with leverage, but I mean, I'm on the offensive side with positioning for altcoin movement. People still trading this Puma coin? Yeah, I mean, everyone's trading NFTs, I've heard. Like, I've not been around for like the weekends, and apparently on pretty much every weekend, like people just go completely crazy into NFTs, which is fine by me. I think there's plenty of buy and sell and whatever, like plenty of opportunity to be had there. It's just, I'm familiar with this stuff. I like to kind of know where my risk is. So focusing on this, but I do have like some stuff on the NFT side to kind of sell if prices get crazy enough. I wouldn't mind, but I'm not exposed as exposed as other people are, not in the slightest. What do you think of Litecoin? We'll talk about it in a sec. What do you think about the bull trap scenario? I mean, that would be like, this would be the bull trap, complacency bounce, whatever, right? So you have like your top here and then complacency shoulder here. That would be the bearish case. The bullish case would just be it going up. And like I said, I think the USD pairs on the altcoins wouldn't do too poorly if that were the case. Alts going up isn't bearish. I mean, it is in a way. I mean, I'm saying like Bitcoin straight up, if you're in leverage longs, I would reconsider at this point. And I mean, like I said, I exchanged my Bitcoin into altcoins, right? So like, I wouldn't short this because I don't really see a good reason to, right? And I've said the same thing last week, right? I was like, while this is the best bear setup that you're going to get, right? With like a close back below resistance, stop loss up here, I would much rather take the opposite side and just get in when the bearish setup is invalidated. And that happened pretty much like a few days afterwards. So yeah, it's still the same. Like the only way you get me back to bearish is crash through 40k, and I think that's it. Might get like another bounce out of it afterwards, but I think that's like the most bearish you can get. Until then, like who cares about these like 6k or 10%? I don't. I'd much rather position for some action elsewhere. Everybody talks about opportunities from the past, but nobody talks about future setups. I mean, I did last week. I mean, like legitimately, like I said, reclaim 45 and fucking moon it. And that's literally what happened. And the setup was stop loss down here, reclaim this, and then target 50k. I mean, that's still in play, right? And that's a pretty damn good setup to me. So it is what it is. Everybody's bullish, okay? I mean, I'm talking here, I'm sitting here exchanging my Bitcoin for altcoins. That's not necessarily bullish for Bitcoin, right? So yeah, that's Bitcoin. I don't really see much reason like to talk about anything on that front too much more. It's pretty damn simple. Like 40k is lost, that's bad news. 50k is kind of broken, that's good news for Bitcoin. Probably bad news for the altcoin Bitcoin pairs. And then more bullish than bearish towards like on the kind of thought of going to 50k, right? So I would expect, I think the chances of it going to 50k are higher than it going to 40k. But then again, like if it does go to 40k, I might actually look to buy some more. And if it fails that, I'm gonna get out and expect lower. There you go. That's my short version of Bitcoin. Hope it helps. And then with regards to altcoins, we have ETH doing all right, right? We talked about this last week too. Someone asked me where to buy, and I was like, you either buy now or you don't. And that pretty much played out the same way as Bitcoin did. With these kind of setups, right, you don't really get the cleanest chance in the market conditions like this. So it's just is what it is. You gotta kind of have conviction in your trade and then ride it, or just don't, because you don't get the cleanest setups. But with ETH BTC, the resistance is still at 0.08 and support is still down here, right? Fuck off. So, I mean, that's just the range. Nothing too interesting. And I still think ETH is meh on the setup side of things, even more so. While like the ETH weekly might have broken out, right? We're straight into the area where I said, like, if you're going to get a complacency bounce, that's going to be where it's going to occur, right? That's something I've said, like, basically during the crash, like 3.2K, 3.4K, that's the area to look out for. And that's where we are right now, right? So I wouldn't necessarily want to be playing on the long side, anything through here. But for me, in general, like, it's not necessarily the best short setup, given how the market is situated right now, but it's not like the worst. Like if you want to short this, stop loss here and then try to like swing trade it to the downside, I mean, do it, right? I'm not going to take it. I'd much rather look for like the buying opportunities, but not the worst setup. It's just like not for me. But yeah, like taking extra risk into this area doesn't make much sense to me, because like I said, if you ever have a complacency bounce, it's going to be here. So we have the same kind of thing for Bitcoin and ETH, right? Like Bitcoin in weekly resistance, ETH into daily resistance. So I could see them, even if they want to break through, I could see them stall. And that is typically relatively good for the other altcoins. So that's where my focus is right now. I think Bitcoin is still leading. I think Bitcoin is like leading like 90% of the time. I've seen stupid arguments from people that have no idea about crypto. That are like, okay, NFTs made this market pump or whatever. It's stupid. Like Bitcoin up Like basically Bitcoin goes up and people realize, okay, this is something I want to be involved in. And then they ape other stuff harder, right? So like Bitcoin goes up and NFTs go like up like twice the amount. And that's just because people feel secure in an area where like, or during a time when Bitcoin is going up more so than during a time where it goes down, right? Like let's say Bitcoin dropped from here. You're not going to have much fun with your NFTs. You're not going to have much fun with the altcoins either. It's just how this market works right now. So if you didn't have any spot exposure, when would you buy? In what scenario? There's something that we talked about like during the lows, right? Where I was like, where the fuck do you buy, right? Like, I think that was like literally a stream that we've had down here. It was like, okay, where the fuck do you buy? Do you buy on a break of 35? Pretty hard to do, but I mean, you can. Do you buy on a break of like 40? Pretty hard to do, but you can, right? And we're still like in this where it's like really hard to buy because we are at resistance right now. And then do you buy the break of 50K? You could, but it's really hard, right? So like in instances like this, you gotta be really, really careful because what you get is like a sideline squeeze. And that's kind of what this was. So everyone and their mother basically, like we started breaking down and people started getting really bearish, right? And I mean, that's kind of normal given, I mean, drops like this aren't really normal. So getting bearish on these makes a lot of sense. It's just like this started trending down in a way where you didn't really have, like you had a shitload of resistances very, very close together, right? You could draw like, let me draw this. You could say, okay, this is resistance here. This is resistance here. This is resistance like I've drawn it. This is resistance here, right? There's a lot of excuses to stay out of the market. And whenever that happens and you start squeezing, people are going to use those excuses to kind of stay in their bias. And what happens is they're going to be forced to buy above those levels. And then usually they get fucked, right? So it's really hard to answer that question. I think like you get a pullback to 40, that's a good setup. And if that fails, I mean, you have a problem because then you have to get out a little bit lower. But that's like a decent setup because you're gonna know when to get out and when to get in. With like regards to breakout setups, 49K is pretty big resistance. The thing is like you could play this as a breakout setup, but it could just like, it could break out here and then immediately rug pull and then use it as resistance and go down. And if you do that, like you have to get out at the second test, right? Like you don't want to be stuck after, like the thing is like this rallied, what, like 60% now? You don't want to be stuck in that if it goes against you. But I mean, if you buy in, it goes up and then just keeps going up, you've probably done like a pretty good buy. But yeah, these breakout buys, like the 40K was pretty obvious to me, but anything beyond like 50K is going to be pretty hard to do. You're probably going to be right for some time, but there's a good chance I think that it rug pulls immediately after. So the answer is like, it's going to be really hard. You either buy like a pullback and then hope the pullback sticks. And if it doesn't, you get out, or you buy a breakout and hope the breakout sticks. And if it doesn't, you get out. So you got to kind of make up your mind on that in advance. And if you don't, I mean, yeah, you're going to have a problem. So there you go. That's Bitcoin, right? Like I said, ETH's at resistance. Can't recommend like going too ape. But like if it breaks that resistance, there's nothing left, right? And ETH BTC has some room to go. So got to be careful on that front, like to not get too bearish here. I think like what you can do if you want to be a bear, you can just like chill, let this be the complacency bounce and not get in, and then start positioning yourself bearishly below 2.3K. Because at that point, like if it goes below 2.3K, it's probably going to have a second leg down, which is going to be as brutal as the first one. And it's going to wipe all of this out, right? So like if you want to be bearish, there's a good reason to be bearish lower instead of just here. But you can just be bearish here if you want to. Like I said, it's the best resistance on the chart. it's just not for me. I'd much rather be bearish lower. It's the same with Bitcoin. I'd much rather be bearish at 40K than at 46. As stupid as that sounds. Okay, that's Bitcoin and ETH. And like I said, we can talk about like Litecoin and that kind of stuff. Litecoin is actually one of the majors that like I don't like too much. It's at resistance right now. I could see that fail and then just go down. In general, like given that we have other setups that are better, I don't want to be playing Litecoin too much. If it breaks that resistance, I mean, you can just use this low as your stop loss and then try to target up here. And if you're like mega bullish, like target way higher. But like, I think there's charts that look much, much better than this. And one of those is XRP. It's the reason why I bought it. And you might like look at this and you're like, okay, this is just like a never ending downtrend on the lower time frames. But what this actually, like the reason why, like, I think there's some potential here. And don't get me wrong, I think XRP is pretty trashy. I don't like the coin. But I mean, if I get a setup, I'm going to play the setup. The reason why I find this interesting is you can kind of see how influential like this 1,500 sats area has been, right? Like the moment it starts, like the moment it hits, you get like nasty bounces. And if it fails, I mean, that just leads to bearish kind of retests to lower. And every time it breaks out of that level, or like most of the times, it's pretty violent, right? Like you've had a bunch of like fake outs in here. But ever since like then, it's been actually pretty accurate. And I mean, these levels aren't like 100% accurate all the time. But like if you kind of count this down, like you've had it accurate once, twice, 3 times, then it got chopped once, and then you had it accurate as a breakout signal in here, as resistance in here, as support in here, as support in here, and then again as resistance in here. And we've kind of retested that again. And in this case, it's actually been the swing low before an entire cycle played out, right? So it's an interesting area to look at. It's kind of what we retested. And on top of that, it actually is like a neckline retest, right? So you have like your inverse head and shoulder set up here, and you kind of retested this as a deviation. If you don't like the head and shoulders, whatever, I understand. I'm not biggest fan of it. But if you want to just look at this as a deviation below the range, right? So this is the bottom of the range, right? And then you've had a deviation below it. And what's the best place to buy? It's when it starts retesting it. And that's just kind of what I did. And I like that setup. I think there's some upside to be had on this. Like I said, I don't like the coin, but I'm going to play these setups. Even more so given like my invalidation, like on the setup is basically just like a close back below this green line, which is like 20-25% away. And my target is pretty much like a 3x, 4x away on the Bitcoin pair, right? When you have like these kind of setups, I don't really give a shit. Like let's say this stops me out. I mean, I'd be sad, but it wouldn't be like the most terrible loss. And if it doesn't, I mean, I'm going to make a bunch of money just by having positioned nicely. So that's kind of like the setups I want to be playing. And I mean, XRP is just like offering a really nice one. I'd much rather have this on another coin, but it's XRP, so be it, right? XRP, the new Doge. I mean, maybe. Like, if this catches on like Dogecoin did again, I think like targeting like a 3x away isn't like too far-fetched. And then like you could even say, this is the range, right? This is where it gets rejected here, here, overshot in here, overshot in here, and then you have like your 4x, whatever. And now that sounds not too realistic, but then again, like your losses are much, much smaller than your gains if it actually plays out. So that's what I'm kind of aiming for on the XRP side of things. same, like with regards to the USD pair, we actually, like I actually bought a little bit lower, but it's actually at resistance right now. So that's going to be an interesting one. If it punches right through here, that's like the last resistance, and this is all-time high, right? 3.5. So like if it does turn this, I think there's not really that much standing in the way on that front. But then again, saying that, as we are at resistance, is major cope, right? You don't want to be like saying, okay, if this breaks, like you're sitting in a position, you're like, if this breaks, I'm going to be rich. And then like resistance does its job and then you're fucked, right? But for me, like what I could see in this is like maybe a retest down here and then it goes, who knows? But like this doesn't look too bearish either, right? It's just a steady uptrend, and yeah, some money to be made, I hope. That's why I've positioned this way. And the same is actually true. And the only reason why I've actually been interested and like I actually pulled the trigger pretty decently sized is because we actually have a bunch of bullish setups on these like dino coins. And I know like you guys probably hate all of these. They haven't really moved in a long time. But like whenever I get like good setups on these, right? So for example, I bought a bunch of BCH2, like much less than XRP because I like the setup less, but I bought a bunch of BCH2. Just based on the fact, right? Whenever you get a swing down with like a strong reaction to the upside, and this is kind of exactly what happened here, right? What you want to be buying usually is this area, right? So like in this area, and for like a second leg, right? Like let's say this does this, comes back in here, and then has a second leg. Doesn't have to be much higher than the first one, but just has a second leg. Like that's where like the area that you want to be buying if you expect a second leg. Now it doesn't have to come in, right? And for BCH, I mean BCH, I don't even know like what the fucking narrative would be for this to pump. But it's just like the setup, right? Let's say this breaks down, I'm out. I don't want to touch this again until it kind of goes much, much lower. But given it's the last area where you can buy, and it's actually a decent setup to buy, I don't mind it too much. And the same is true actually for EOS, which is hilarious. It's weaker than the rest, but it's still in an area. Let me actually move these and then can show you better. Still in an area of support, right? So this is the last area to buy. So it's usually a good area to buy. And if it doesn't provide the support that you wanted to, I mean, you can just cut it and then you take your loss and let it just completely die, which is fine, I think. And I mean, that could be the end result of all of this, is that this is just legitimately the last tiny bounce before it breaks down. And if you're not kind of like, if you're sitting here being like, okay, this guy bought, so I'm going to be buying and then closing my eyes and walking away for like a quarter year or whatever. I mean, that's not how I'm playing these things, right? I'm going to be out of these the moment I see the tides turning. So like, don't fucking blame me for your like shitty decisions. It's just like, for me, there's a bunch of trades to be made. And the same is true for TRX. TRX is actually one of the cleanest setups. I mean, I don't even have to explain much on this one. It's as clean as XRP, I think. And I hate both of them so much. So it's like, there's no real bias, like backholder bias on my side, right? But what this is it's the same setup, right? You have like a deviation down here below the range. You could even call this entire thing a deviation below the range. This being the range, let me actually draw it in. Like this is the range, right? Range support, range resistance. And what this did is it ranged, found resistance at resistance, broke to the downside, and then reclaimed the range, went back to the resistance up here, and then retested the low. Now, like with this, there's a real clear invalidation, right? You get like a fake out to the downside. I don't want to hold this shit anymore. But given its range low, like even if you disregard all the kind of range deviations, making it more likely to go to the upside. Even if you disregard all that, it's just a range low, right? It hit range low. You hit range low, you expect range high in a trending, like in a non-trending market. And that's kind of what this is, right? If you look back, which is kind of hilarious, TRX has actually been holding pretty well during the bear market of altcoins. This has just been going sideways for basically 2 years. And so like this is a sideways trending market, and sideways trending markets, like you want to be buying support, selling resistance. Jesus Christ, you guys need to stop spamming all the cash tags. I'll go through them like at some point, but like right now the chat's just unusable. EOS still bearish. I mean, EOS is whatever. Like EOS is not as good as the other ones, but like I don't mind it too much. And like I said, this can turn real quick, right? Let's say Bitcoin dumps and this candle turns into a red one, right? The picture looks very, very different, or even like starts closing down here. Like at that point, it looks really fucking bad, right? It's just, that's the price I'm willing to pay to capture this entire thing. Let me actually, like, I'm willing to pay this shit to capture this. So, and I think like the chances of both playing out are basically like close to 50-50. And then you can kind of count like, okay, my reward's pretty damn big. You could even argue to target higher. My risk is pretty damn low. And I think like the chances of this actually providing support is pretty decent, like 50-50. That's a trade I take every time, right? So that's why I took it. That's kind of my reasoning. So to answer the title of the stream, right, which is a little bit clickbaity, I think there's actually a good chance that like some of this trash is gonna pump and pump decently. So maybe we get like some NFT rotation, like people take their profits and go back into crappy altcoins. Maybe we don't, right? Maybe it's just all gonna be focused on NFTs. And I mean, I have tiny exposure, but not enough. So I'd be kind of sad on that front. But I think the NFT market is actually kind of overheating or starting to, at least from what I'm seeing as a non-insider. I just have a bunch of garbage that friends shilled me into. But yeah, it seems like there's so many clones running rampant that I mean, I think that has like it's probably gonna cool down at least somewhat, and maybe you get capital relocation into like the old garbage coins like TRX, XRP, and that kind of stuff. But I can't guarantee it, so I'm just playing the odds. Would you think there's a risk of liquidity disappearing on older coins? I mean, they've been around. As long as you don't go like, I don't know how big your size is, right? If you're like asking me that with like a 10 million allocation in like fucking XRP, then it's gonna be a completely different question to like let's say you buy like 6 figures of XRP. If you buy 6 figures of XRP, like I think you're gonna slip like a % or 2 if you're not like stupid getting in or out, and that's like in a if you really want to get in or out, right? If you take your time, you're probably not gonna slip much at all. But if you trade 7 figures, it's a little bit different. It gets harder and harder, obviously, the bigger your size is. So depends. Like the liquidity question is for most people completely meaningless because you don't trade that size. But it's definitely one that you should ask yourself if you're trading bigger size, right? And it's one of the advantages you have with a smaller portfolio because like getting in and out of these coins is pretty difficult without pushing price up or down, right? And let's say you want to get like out of something and the size is too big that you have, you might be sitting there for a few days getting out and you see like this, but you don't want to do just wick it to basically zero, right? So you have to take your time and then you have to sell while it's going down and it sucks, right? But for most people, like that's not the case. You can just get in and out, and you pay like a little bit of market fees and a little bit of slippage, but not much. Okay. If you just spam your cash tag like over and over again, I'm just gonna ban you. So don't be like I see, like I get when let's say you have like a question about your altcoin, right, and you want to see me chart it, like if you ask once or twice, I get it. Or if I ask, okay, can you, like, do you want to see something, and then you answer, like, that's fine. But if you just post it over and over again, that's not. We trade 4 and 5 figures done. I mean, then you don't have to worry about it. Like, you have to worry about NFTs, even if you just trade like 4 or 5 figures. The liquidity there can get like, it can't just completely disappear. But with these coins, it's a little bit of a different story. Other than like a news event where like something terrible happens, and even then, like we had XRP. Like if you look back at XRP's history, right, we had like it pump, and then you had the SEC stuff come up, and you still had a shitload of time to get out during this move down. I mean, you can look at it on the 4 hour. Look at this. Like you had bad news hit, and then you, liquidity wise, right, you still had time to sell, even though like the worst of the worst happened basically. Like those are like 12 hours of time to get out, and during like something that is catastrophic, and it fixed itself somewhat, but you get what I'm trying to say. Like even if the worst of the worst happens, there's gonna be some bids on these, and Jesus Christ, I fucking love when I buy altcoins and they go up immediately. Like such a nice feeling. You can literally see where I start buying on this chart. What about Dogecoin? We can talk about Dogecoin real quick. So Dogecoin, I think, is wildly overpriced, just based on like the stupid hype it got. It's still up a shitload on the Bitcoin pair, like 3.5%. I still think it's gonna go up probably. I think there's a good chance that this rallies like 20-30%. It's just like, why would I want to be sticking my neck out in like a coin? I think this is gonna bleed out, right? Even if this pumps like this, it's gonna do this. I'm not gonna be sticking my neck out for this shit, right? This had its time, right? It had its pump. Any kind of complacency shoulder you get, I think is gonna be sold heavily into. Now with like other stuff that hasn't had this kind of pump, I think there's the chances for like 2x, 3x, 4x against Bitcoin are higher. So I think this probably goes up. I like just looking at the chart. I think there's a good chance it does. It's just not for me. Like I don't see, like let's say I bought this here, right? My risk would be down here, which I already hate because like it's pretty much like a double bottom garbage kind of thing. And then my target would be what, like into this kind of area. And I think the chances of this playing out are not 50-50. There's a good chance that this actually just does something like this and then fizzles out, right? So comparing this to like what I drew for you on the XRP chart, it's just wildly different, right? So fuck that, not interested. But if you want to be trading Dogecoin, I think there's a good chance it goes up from here. It's just, for me, not interesting. Where's Kretz? I mean, we always stream, like he streams Monday, I stream Wednesday, and then we do a podcast on Fridays. Usually we try to. But yeah, that's what I see for Dogecoin. Like, I don't really care about it too much. Like, I look at TRX, for example, right? Like, fucking hell, this seems so clear that this can easily go and put in like 70% movement to the upside. And like, if it does something completely crazy and this market tends to go crazy, I think like there's a good chance this 3x's, right? I'm not saying this is gonna go back to all-time high or whatever, but I think like there's a good chance this heads higher, right? Just looking at the chart, and then I compare that to Dogecoin, I just don't see it. But I could be wrong on that. Maybe Dogecoin just flips Bitcoin and goes completely nuts. Dawn, it almost feels like NFTs are orchestrated by the ETH whales, rising, floors, sucking in all the ETH, making it so much more easier to pump ETH and alt sooner than later. I mean, wouldn't be surprising, has happened in the past, but like, even if you think about, like, whenever I hear that, right, I'm like, okay, even if this is true, what can I do with that information, right? If you're like, I don't want to fall into that trap, then you're kind of shooting yourself in the foot, right? Because those are rich people that you don't want to be counter trading. Like, if that is true whatsoever, right? It doesn't have to be. So if you hear that, like, because people always use that as a bearish argument, right? But you don't want to be counter trading the rich people that are orchestrating the market, if that should happen. You want to be trading with them, right? Because, I mean, the market isn't going to care about like your 3, 4, 5, 6 figures. Even like if you start trading with 7 figures, like the market might low time frame care, but like it doesn't really give a shit. But like the bigger players in the market, they can move it, right? So like you want to surf their wave, and I mean you get in after like or while they do it, and they get out before they do, and then you're gonna be just fine, right? You don't want to be like, if you hear those kind of rumors, should make you more bullish than bearish. Now, obviously, if that's true, at some point it's gonna dump back down again. But that's another story, right? Because like I see these like conspiracy theories like so often, and I mean they might be true, right? For all I know, it's just like, even if Tether, for example, if the Tether conspiracy is true, right? If they're seriously using like made up money to pump the market, you'd be stupid not to play alongside with them, right? You only need a 2x to kind of pull your capital out if you think the market's at serious risk. And then you just play with house money, right? If that's all you're worried about. So it's like, if you hear these conspiracy theories, like think, okay, what can I do with that? Because if all you think about is, okay, this sounds so scary, I don't want to be in this market, then you're missing the point, I think. So there you go. That's kind of my view on all of these conspiracy theories, because even if they're true, it doesn't really help you much like panicking about it. And if you're panicking really hard because like you have too much of your net worth in, that might be like a sign to take some out, right? Never hurts to take profit out of a speculative market like this one. Like if you think this isn't bubbly, right, I think you're delusional. Like the NFT stuff, completely beyond reason. Now, it's still a great market to trade. And in bubbles, you make the most money, but like it's definitely not a reasonable market, right? So it going up like 10x or going down 90% are both on the table, right? You buy an NFT, this thing could go 10x, 100x, could also like, or it will most likely go 99% down. And it's the same thing with these coins, right? It's all speculative. And the only coin that isn't as much is Bitcoin. So if you want to have less speculation, more kind of focused in reason, and just gravitate towards Bitcoin. And if you want to make a bunch of money with the risk associated with that, I mean, there's other things than Bitcoin. So Doge good to buy right now. I talked about Doge just a few seconds ago, mate. I mean, it's somewhat of a decent setup, but not my favorite. I think there's better ones to be had. Have you had a look at Litecoin yet? Yeah, like Litecoin's at weekly resistance, man. I mean, if it breaks that, you can play it however you like. I'm probably not gonna be playing it. I'd much rather focus on like XRP and that kind of garbage, the other garbage, which right now is pumping pretty damn decently. Actually broke $1, which is pretty nice. But yeah, I'm focusing on other stuff. Sol, someone asked for Sol. Sol actually like pretty strong. Not gonna lie, it's at resistance right now. I don't know where it drew this 3 day. Yeah, it's at resistance right now. But like this didn't really care much about like the downshift on the altcoins, right? Now you can make an argument for like a descending triangle, whatever. I think what you can do, and I think like in these cases you can actually draw these. It breaks out on the Bitcoin pair above 0.001. It's actually like both pattern breakout and a horizontal breakout. It's probably gonna go higher at that point. And if you wanna like look at the USD pair, because all of you. No, that's Bybit. We don't need Bybit. Too little history. If you want to look at the USD pair, I don't know where this is coming from. Weekly, maybe? Yeah, that's weekly resistance. So we are at weekly resistance on Sol, right? But like looking at this chart, I don't really get like the urge to short this at all. Like if anything, like this looks pretty strong. Probably gonna be strong as long as Bitcoin does well. Whatever, let's just leave the dot on there. Too annoying. Whenever you have like these resistances tested once and then shift down, test it again, like usually it just starts rounding out and then it goes. And then it's either fake out and it breaks to the downside, or like it's genuine and it goes up. But yeah, like I wouldn't want to be bearish too much into 45. Like for short-term movement, maybe, given this is a weekly time frame, you have more than enough time to take that. But like for me, like the more interesting trade is through resistance. But it's not as clean as the other setups that I talked about. But then again, like this has like a strong bullish momentum. That said, like it's the hilarious part. It's like it's up from $1 to $40, right? So Jesus, I hate the new way trading view does this. So like it's up 40x already. That doesn't have to mean it's gonna go down. It's just like, yeah, you're gonna have to be a little bit more careful. But I'm not bearish on this. Why do you chart in log usually? Just based on like the movement. Look at this. Like the past history, like you can't do anything with this. And look at, for example, Dogecoin, right? Like the chart just disappears. Like with log, I mean, this doesn't really change much because Dogecoin moves so much. But ETHUSD, for example, you look at this, right? And you can draw like supports here, and you can draw like even supports down to like 300, and that seems reasonable. And then you turn off log, and you're like, okay, this is the worst crash in history. And I mean, it's still really fucking bad, even on log. But like with this, there's less to do on the chart, because you're gonna be like, okay, this is basically zero already, and then anything below like whatever, like 1.4k is zero. And with this, you can actually draw meaningful lines. So it's just easier for me. If you draw like diagonals, you're gonna have to pick a side, because like, let me show you this. You can see it actually. Like on log, these move while you move them, obviously. So you can see how the lines move, right? So if you draw a lot of diagonals, you're gonna have to pick one that you prefer. I usually just toggle it on and off, see how it looks on both sides. Hi Dawn, can you please have a look at FTT? It's the same as Sol right now. Yeah, FTT is pretty much just like Bitcoin goes up, FTT goes up. The interesting pair is FTT Bitcoin, and I mean, this just looks hilariously bullish. We actually wanted to include this in the newsletter as like the one altcoin to look out for, right? Just like basically yesterday. Was that yesterday? Yesterday morning, whatever, like somewhere before this candle happened. The only problem was like kind of looks weird saying, okay, FTT is one of the strongest ones, and then just have like one altcoin in the newsletter, which is FTT, on like a newsletter sponsored by FTX. Just kind of seems weird, even though like there was good reason for it. It's just like we stayed away from it. But yeah, it went up quite a bit. I think Cred probably has some or bought some. He always nails the FTT stuff. I don't. Like he took most of this rally. So yeah, I mean, there's a bunch of this is so much fun when you have like the old coins that you're familiar with do stuff that you want to be seeing, right? Because like with this, like I know how XRP trades, right? Like I see the opportunity, and the funny thing is like yesterday evening I started getting a feeling, and like I wasn't particularly bullish or bearish on this thing. And the only reason why I actually looked at this, which I have to thank the Dogecoin lovers for, is because like I always used XRP BTC as like an example for how Dogecoin is going to play out, right? With like the continuous dumping in every pump. And I did this over and over again, explained it to people like that's what I'm expecting for Dogecoin, with pumps like this in between, right? But funnily enough, while I was saying that, I was like, what the fuck? This actually looks really good. Dang, XRP is freaking ripping. Yep. Always does when I buy it. I mean, I don't usually buy it, but when I do, it usually goes. Can we look at the... Nah, I'm not gonna do stuff like Pump does. I think Pump's an idiot. He's probably not an idiot. He's pretty damn smart, but like what he says is idiotic. I think he's probably a really smart guy. And I mean, the thing is, like with being an influencer, right? The easiest way to kind of get a good following and make a bunch of money off of it is just by saying stupid shit, right? You say like reasonable stuff, no one wants to listen to you, right? It's just boring, right? Anyone that's ever listened to like an expert in a field that they care nothing about, I mean, you know that shit's just boring, right? And then you listen to like an actor or whatever talk about it, even if you don't care about it, they can make it interesting. And that's kind of how I see these people. Like, they're just there to kind of provide color commentary, but there's nothing of depth that is said, or mostly just garbage. Are you into on-chain analysis? Nope. And I mean, that's the same thing. Like the on-chain guys, like they do the same thing. Like if I sat here and made up numbers, like if I made a table here and made up a shitload of numbers with like whatever data in there, and I told you like out of like these reasons XRP is gonna pump, you guys would be sitting there being like, holy shit, this guy's a genius, right? I could pull the numbers out of my ass. I could use only the numbers that I think support my case. I could do a bunch of shit to make it look really, really smart, right? And that's basically what on-chain people do, at least in my opinion. Like they pick data to kind of support whatever claim they make. And given like most people don't understand what the fuck they're actually talking about, yeah, it just gets treated as gospel. And the thing is, like, they're mostly bullish. Like pretty much all of them are. And that's like just a good combination, right? You sound really smart and you're bullish. So people are going to trust you, give you money for whatever you do. And it's funny because most of the on-chain guys actually sell something, like either like whatever, they charge money for you to actually listen to that crap. But that's my opinion. It doesn't have to be true. Maybe there's more to it that I'm missing. But whenever I like talk or listen to one of those kind of people, I'm just like, okay, whatever. I'll let them do their thing. They always be selling something. Yeah, I mean, that's the way to go. That's like legitimately the way to go. But this watching it live go completely nuclear is fucking hilarious. Feels good, man. Feels good, man. I bought way too much of this garbage. It feels bad, man, that I bought like this much garbage, but feels good, man, that it's making so much profit. Can FTT overtake BNB market cap? I think so. I think like in general, like Binance is going to have more regulatory problems than FTX is. But I mean, I might be biased, but I just think that makes sense. So yeah, we can look at like Link and that kind of stuff. I think actually Link looked kind of shitty for a while. It's starting to look a little bit better now. But it's like, you can see how choppy this is, right? And you can see, I mean, it's probably gonna, like, if all altcoins go up, and I mean, XRP pump almost always kind of leads to that, then Link's gonna go up as well, right? But like, given this choppiness, it's really hard to pinpoint the setup. So if you want to be bullish, whatever, you can't, like, let's say you see like bullish setups all over the place and you want to be buying Link, but you don't have one, right? Just take the bullish setup from another coin, transfer it over to Link, trade it that way, right? That's completely fine. Just for me, like just chart wise, it's just choppy as fuck. So I don't want to be involved. And there's a bunch of other coins that are the same way, right? Yeah, it's like meh. And like all the old coins, like there's not that much there. Like some of them, and this is something like I actually like looked through my list a couple of days ago, and I looked at Request Network, and I saw this candle. I was like, I'm just gonna buy the next like bigger pullback that I get. Just FOMO into it. Like usually when you get these kind of big candles, you get like a second one afterwards. Just would not let me get a fill. So it is what it is. Wouldn't have bought big anyway, because that was literally my entire thesis for this thing. But yeah, now it's up a shitload. Can't recommend buying into this kind of stuff. But whenever you see like these big candles, like there's oftentimes a second leg to be played. And that's kind of what happened here. And yeah. Fucking hell. Some of the stuff is going wild. And like I said, like the thing is like, for example, Wi-Fi, like if you want to be bullish this, it's really hard to be so, because like where the fuck is your invalidation? And then you just have to pick one based on another chart. Why ADA not getting any love? I mean, same reason, like that's not a good setup. I think this like, there's a lot of strength in ADA, and if you get a good setup, fucking buy it. And I mean, there's no reason to be bearish this. It's just like, where do you have your invalidation? Like there's empty space here. So if I longed this, or if I bought this, I would have to buy it with much smaller size, because I have no idea when to get out, right? And that's why I don't care about it. It's not because like, I don't like ADA, right? I just don't like it. But it's not like I'm never gonna be not buying something because I don't like it, because I fucking hate XRP, right? And I bought a shitload of that. And I mean, it's making hilarious gains right now. But like, I don't care. If I hate this, I'm still going to buy it, right? And the reason why I bought it is because the invalidation was so close. So there you go. Are you fighting Pump in Dubai? I'd probably lose. I'm like terribly out of shape fighting wise. Haven't done it in a while. Used to do it, but haven't done it in a while. So there we go. I mean, pretty good. I think pretty good rundown. My reasoning is pretty clear, I think. Should be anyway. I think like if we have everything idiotic pumping, right? I mean, XRP is gonna pump too. It's just like easy as that. And like I bought a bunch of BCH too. I hope that's not gonna underperform too much. I'm already regretting my choice, because like I should have probably just focused on XRP and TRX, which I think are the better setups. But I mean, I just thought like TRX and XRP is just too much shit being bought. And I mean, Bitcoin Cash is not much better, but yeah. But that's how it is played. And the one thing that I cannot recommend you do, and it's something that a lot of people do wrong. Like, let's say you see XRP pump, right? And then you buy into the pump and it starts retracing and you're like, fuck it. This could be like, and it could be, right? It could be the top. I'm getting out. And then you're like, okay, but this setup didn't play out yet. So I'm going to get into this. And then XRP does this. And you're like, fuck, I'm going to FOMO chase back into this. And then Bitcoin Cash starts going, for example. Like that kind of stuff I've seen too many times. Like you have a setup, you stick with the setup. Don't be an idiot. Don't get out before you're invalidated. Or like if you have a good reason to get out or in or whatever, right? Like chasing pumps, bad way to lose money in a market that goes up. I've seen it so many times during old seasons and whatever, when people are just like chasing one pump after the other. And then they, at the end of the day, they're like up 50% and the coin that they've bought first is like up 10x, right? Don't be that idiot. And it's really hard to pick your invalidations if you do that too, right? So, Jesus XRP. What did I miss? Yeah, I mean, it's pretty nice. Pretty nice. $1.10. I'm digging it. Is bear market over? I mean, the thing is with this, right? I could see this still be a bear market, but I don't really care about that too much, right? The only reason why like you would ever say like bull or bear market or whatever is to kind of show people like where you think the market is heading in general, right? But like Bitcoin could go to 50K, it could go to 40K. Like I don't really care about it too much given like my altcoin positions. And it doesn't really change much like on how I want to be positioned, right? Because I want to be buying 40.5 if I get it. I want to be bearish if we lose that level. And I want to be starting to kind of scale out of my altcoins if we smash 50K with some strength. Because at that point, I think Bitcoin is just going to suck the liquidity back in, right? So, I mean, up here, there's a good chance bull market is back on, right? And I'm going to look to position that way. Don't really care about whether, like, what this is, right? I'm just going to be playing the chart how I see fit. And didn't have a problem buying 45, 40.5, and didn't have a problem buying down here and then selling because I thought, like, okay, it could range a lot longer, and I was gone, right? Like, I'm just going to trade the chart. So I don't really care too much, but I obviously get why people do, right? Just easiest for people to kind of categorize. But like in trading, you don't have to. It's the best part about it, right? Let's say this breaks down. I'm going to change my entire attitude 180 degrees and be super fucking bearish. But until that happens, don't really see a reason to, right? Even if this is, and this is the difference, right? Even if this is the complacency bounce, and I think there's a good chance it is. I think there's a really good chance that this is the complacency bounce, considering how altcoins are moving, considering how all of this is moving, right? I think there's a really good chance it's the complacency bounce. But even if it is, I'm more than happy to be bearish below 40K and not above it, right? So like, let's say this is the complacency bounce in here. I mean, so be it, right? Like, it's like being bearish in here. Like, you're not going to be caring too much about having missed like the first move. If there's no obvious top, I mean, I don't have to sell the top. I can just chill and let it come to me, basically. Hope that makes sense. I think that's more than plenty for today. Talked about a bunch of stuff. Had XRP Moon on stream, which is pretty nice. Made a bunch of money on that. And yeah, we'll see it. We'll see how this plays out. I'm curious as much as you are. Would rather have like a bullish play out of this because I'm going to make much more money if this plays out to the bullish way, but I'm open to the bearish one as well. And yeah, appreciate you guys coming by. As always, appreciate the sponsor of the show, which is FTX, which was formerly known as Blockfolio. Their links are in the description. They still do like the portfolio tracking and mobile trading that they've always done. And I think like if you're trading on mobile, makes a lot of sense to look that up because, or like if you have your portfolio on your mobile phone for whatever reason, I always recommend it to like people that ask me what's the best way to kind of have it super simple. So, I mean, if I recommend it to my friends, I mean, should be good enough for you if you want to check that out. But if you're just using it on the computer, whatever, you don't have to. Like I said, links are in the description. Appreciate you guys coming by. Appreciate you taking part. Sorry for not going through all of your altcoins. Pretty much impossible to do. And yeah, we'll just talk again probably on Monday because I think Friday is probably going to be a podcast. So see you then. Bye-bye.